The fading light of an Alabama evening cast long shadows across the quiet suburban streets of Mountain Brook as Sarah Chen pulled into her driveway after another grueling day at the Birmingham police station. The detective sergeant had been working cases for over 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for what would become the most haunting investigation of her career. It started with a phone call on a humid Tuesday morning in June, when the missing persons report for 18-year-old Jessica Martinez first crossed her desk. Jessica had vanished without a trace from a rest stop along Interstate 65, somewhere between Montgomery and Birmingham, during what should have been a routine drive home from her college orientation at Auburn University. Her car was found 3 days later in the parking lot of a truck stop near Clanton, Alabama, keys still in the ignition, purse intact on the passenger seat, but no sign of the bright young woman who had been driving it. If you're watching this story unfold, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring these important stories to light. The Martinez family had moved to Birmingham from El Paso, Texas, when Jessica was 12 years old. Her father, Carlos, worked as a foreman at a steel manufacturing plant, while her mother, Elena, had built a small but successful catering business that specialized in traditional Mexican cuisine. Jessica was their only child, the pride of their lives, and the first in their family to attend college. She had dreams of becoming a pediatric nurse, inspired by her own childhood experience with juvenile diabetes. Detective Chen remembered the first time she met Elena Martinez. The woman sat in the sterile waiting room of the police station, her hands clutched tightly around a worn photograph of Jessica at her high school graduation. Elena's eyes held a mixture of hope and terror that Chen had seen too many times before in the families of missing persons. Carlos paced nearby, his work boots echoing against the linoleum floor, unable to sit still as worry consumed him. The investigation began with the basics. Jessica had attended her Auburn orientation on Monday, June 14th, and was expected home by dinner time. She had called her mother around 2 in the afternoon to say she was leaving campus and would stop for gas somewhere along the route. That was the last communication anyone had with her. When Jessica failed to arrive home by 9 that evening, Elena called her daughter's cell phone repeatedly. Each call went straight to voicemail. Carlos had driven the route from Auburn to Birmingham 3 times that night, stopping at every gas station, restaurant, and rest area along Interstate 65. He found nothing. No one remembered seeing a petite young woman with long, dark hair driving a silver Honda Civic. It was as if Jessica had simply vanished into the thick Alabama air. The truck stop where Jessica's car was discovered sat at the intersection of 2 major highways, a bustling crossroads where travelers from across the southeast stopped to refuel and rest. The Pilot Travel Center operated 24 hours a day, with security cameras positioned throughout the parking lot and building. Detective Chen arrived at the scene on Friday morning, accompanied by her partner, Detective Marcus Williams, a veteran investigator known for his meticulous attention to detail. The Honda Civic sat in a parking space near the back of the lot, positioned between a tractor-trailer hauling furniture and an RV with Louisiana license plates. Chen walked slowly around the vehicle, noting that it showed no signs of struggle or damage. The doors were unlocked, unusual for someone making a quick stop, but not necessarily suspicious. Jessica's purse contained her driver's license, credit cards, and $43 in cash. Her cell phone was nowhere to be found. Williams interviewed the truck stop employees, while Chen reviewed the security footage. The day shift manager, a weathered man named Bobby Tucker, who had worked at the location for over 8 years, remembered seeing the Honda arrive sometime Tuesday evening. He couldn't pinpoint the exact time, but estimated it was between 6 and 8 o'clock. Tucker recalled noticing the car because it had been parked in the same spot for several days, which was unusual for regular travelers. The security cameras told a frustrating story of technical failures and blind spots. The camera that should have captured the area where Jessica's car was parked had malfunctioned sometime Monday night and hadn't been repaired until Friday morning. Two other cameras provided partial coverage of the lot, but neither clearly showed who had driven the Honda or what had happened after it arrived. Chen spent hours reviewing the available footage, watching endless streams of travelers coming and going. She saw truck drivers stretching their legs, families with small children heading into the convenience store, and elderly couples walking their dogs in the designated pet area. But nowhere in the grainy black and white images did she see Jessica Martinez. The detective began interviewing regular customers and drivers who frequented the truck stop. Long-haul truckers often traveled the same routes repeatedly and might remember seeing something unusual. She spoke with Willie Henderson, a driver from Tuscaloosa, who delivered automotive parts throughout the Southeast. Henderson had been at the truck stop Tuesday night, he recalled, around 7:30, but couldn't remember seeing the silver Honda or anyone matching Jessica's description. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation expanded. Chen coordinated with law enforcement agencies in neighboring counties, distributed missing person flyers throughout central Alabama, and organized volunteer search parties to comb the rural areas surrounding the truck stop. Elena Martinez printed thousands of flyers with Jessica's photograph, driving to every business, community center, and church within a 50-mile radius to post them. The Alabama Bureau of Investigation assigned Special Agent Patricia Davies to assist with the case. Davies brought additional resources and expertise in missing person investigations, but also the sobering reality of statistics. Young women who disappeared under suspicious circumstances and remained missing for more than 72 hours were rarely found alive. Elena Martinez refused to accept such possibilities, clinging to hope with a determination that both inspired and heartbroken everyone involved in the search. 3 weeks after Jessica's disappearance, Chen received a call from a convenience store clerk in Selma, Alabama, roughly 60 miles southwest of Birmingham. The clerk, a college student named Travis Morrison, had seen one of the missing person flyers and believed he might have seen Jessica on the night she vanished. Morrison worked the overnight shift at a Shell station just off Highway 80 and remembered a young Hispanic woman stopping for gas around 10:30 Tuesday evening. Chen drove to Selma immediately, bringing with her a photo lineup that included Jessica's picture among several similar-looking young women. Morrison studied the photographs carefully before pointing to Jessica's image. He was reasonably certain she had been the customer who had paid for gas with cash and asked for directions back to Interstate 65. Morrison remembered the interaction because the woman seemed nervous or upset, though he couldn't say exactly why. The timing and location created a puzzling timeline. If Morrison's identification was correct, Jessica had somehow traveled from the Clanton truck stop to Selma, then presumably back toward Interstate 65. The route made no sense for someone trying to get home to Birmingham, suggesting she might have been lost, following someone, or under duress. Chen returned to the truck stop with renewed focus, this time expanding her canvas to include businesses and residences within a wider radius. She spoke with employees at nearby restaurants, hotels, and gas stations, showing Jessica's photograph and asking about unusual activity on Tuesday evening. Most people remembered nothing helpful, but a waitress at a Waffle House located about a mile from the truck stop provided an intriguing detail. Patricia Wilson had been working the dinner shift on Tuesday and remembered serving a young woman who matched Jessica's description. The customer had ordered coffee and sat alone in a corner booth for nearly 2 hours, appearing to wait for someone. Wilson recalled that the woman seemed anxious and kept checking her phone. When Wilson asked if everything was all right, the customer had said she was meeting someone but wasn't sure if they were coming. The detail about waiting for someone opened new possibilities. Perhaps Jessica's disappearance wasn't random, but connected to an arranged meeting. Chen began investigating Jessica's recent communications, obtaining court orders to access her cell phone records and social media accounts. Elena Martinez provided access to Jessica's laptop and personal belongings, desperate to find any clue that might lead to her daughter. Jessica's digital footprint revealed an active young woman with typical college-age interests. Her social media posts showed excitement about starting at Auburn, photographs with high school friends, and pride in her parents' achievements. Chen found nothing suspicious in Jessica's online activity leading up to her disappearance. No concerning messages, no indication of romantic trouble, no sign of financial stress or family conflict. The cell phone records, however, provided a crucial lead. Jessica's phone had been active until approximately 9:47 p.m. on Tuesday evening, when it either lost power or was turned off. The last call on her record was incoming from an unknown number with a local area code. The call lasted less than 30 seconds, suggesting Jessica had answered, but the conversation was brief. Chen traced the unknown number to a prepaid cell phone purchased with cash at a Walmart in Montgomery 10 days before Jessica's disappearance. The store's security footage showed a man in his 30s with brown hair and a baseball cap making the purchase, but the image quality was too poor for positive identification. The phone had been used sparingly, making only a handful of calls, all to Jessica's number. The discovery of the prepaid phone suggested premeditation and planning. Someone had specifically purchased an untraceable phone to contact Jessica, then used it to communicate with her in the days leading up to her disappearance. Chen obtained records for all the calls made to Jessica's phone from the prepaid number, finding that the first contact had occurred exactly 1 week before she went missing. Elena Martinez couldn't explain who might have been calling her daughter, or why Jessica hadn't mentioned receiving calls from an unknown number. Carlos insisted that Jessica always told them about new people she met, or unusual events in her life. The family was close-knit, he emphasized, and Jessica trusted her parents with her problems and concerns. Chen began developing a profile of the unknown caller. Based on the timing and pattern of the calls, it appeared the person knew Jessica's schedule and habits. The first call had come Tuesday evening around 8 o'clock, when Jessica typically finished her part-time job at a local bookstore. Subsequent calls occurred at various times, but always when Jessica would likely be available to answer. The investigation took on new urgency as summer temperatures soared across Alabama, and the search for Jessica entered its second month. Volunteer groups continued combing rural areas, while law enforcement agencies shared information across state lines in case Jessica had been taken beyond Alabama's borders. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit provided a preliminary profile of the likely perpetrator, describing someone familiar with Jessica's routines who had spent time gaining her trust before arranging a meeting. Detective Chen found herself thinking about the case during her off hours, studying the evidence and trying to identify what she might have missed. She visited the truck stop repeatedly, walking through every possible scenario for how Jessica's car had ended up there while Jessica herself vanished. The location seemed deliberately chosen for its anonymity and heavy traffic, making it difficult to identify witnesses or track movements. On a sweltering Thursday evening in late July, Chen received the call that would break the case open. A construction worker named Jimmy Holbrook had been clearing brush for a new housing development about 12 miles southeast of the Clanton truck stop when his bulldozer uncovered what appeared to be personal belongings buried in a shallow depression. Among the items were a woman's sandals, a cell phone, and an Auburn University orientation packet with Jessica Martinez's name on it. Chen arrived at the construction site as the sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the red Alabama clay. The area was heavily wooded, accessible only by a narrow dirt road that connected to a rural highway about 2 miles away. It was the kind of isolated location someone might choose if they wanted to hide evidence without traveling far from major roadways. The crime scene team worked carefully to excavate and document everything found in the makeshift grave. In addition to Jessica's belongings, they discovered fragments of clothing and what appeared to be restraints made from rope. The discovery confirmed everyone's worst fears while providing the first concrete evidence of what had happened to Jessica Martinez. Elena Martinez collapsed when Detective Chen delivered the news. Carlos stood beside his wife, his face a mask of rage and grief as he absorbed the reality that their daughter was dead. The couple had spent 63 days clinging to hope, following every lead and supporting every search effort. Now they faced the devastating truth that Jessica would never come home. The evidence found at the construction site was processed by the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences. DNA analysis confirmed that some of the items had belonged to Jessica, while other evidence suggested the involvement of at least one other person. Forensic examination of the rope fragments revealed fibers that might be traceable to a specific manufacturer or retail location. Chen returned to her timeline analysis with the new evidence, working to reconstruct Jessica's final hours. The construction site was approximately 25 minutes from the truck stop where her car was found, accessible via back roads that would avoid major highways and potential witnesses. Someone familiar with the local area had chosen the location carefully, suggesting they lived or worked in the region. The detective began mapping the geographical connections between the Auburn University campus, the Clanton truck stop, the Selma gas station where Jessica had been spotted, and the construction site where her belongings were found. The pattern suggested someone who knew Central Alabama well and understood how to move between locations without attracting attention. Agent Davies coordinated with the FBI's evidence response team to conduct a more thorough search of the construction site and surrounding area. Using ground-penetrating radar and specially trained dogs, investigators spent 4 days examining every square foot of the wooded location. Their efforts yielded additional evidence, including tool marks on nearby trees that suggested the area had been prepared in advance. The investigation now focused intensely on identifying who had purchased the prepaid phone and arranged to meet Jessica. Chen worked with telecommunications experts to analyze the calling patterns and determine whether the phone had been used from specific locations. Cell tower records showed that several calls had been made from the Montgomery area where the phone was purchased and from locations along Interstate 65 between Montgomery and Birmingham. Working with behavioral analysts, Chen developed a theory that Jessica's killer had observed her routines over a period of time before making contact. The precision with which the meeting had been arranged and the careful selection of the burial site suggested someone methodical and patient. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, but a planned abduction that had been in development for weeks or even months. Carlos Martinez became increasingly involved in the investigation, driven by grief and a determination to find his daughter's killer. He took time off from his job at the steel plant to drive the routes between Auburn, Birmingham, and Montgomery, stopping at every business to show Jessica's photograph and ask about suspicious customers or employees. His persistence paid off when a manager at an auto parts store in Prattville remembered seeing a man who had seemed unusually interested in a young Hispanic woman who had shopped there several weeks earlier. The manager, Donald Westbrook, recalled the incident because the man had lingered in the store parking lot after the woman left, appearing to follow her movements. Westbrook had been suspicious enough to write down the license plate number of the man's truck, a white Ford pickup with Alabama plates. When Carlos showed him Jessica's photograph, Westbrook immediately confirmed she was the woman he had seen. Chen ran the license plate number through state databases and discovered it belonged to Raymond Fletcher, a 34-year-old construction supervisor with a criminal record that included charges for stalking and harassment. Fletcher lived in a trailer park outside Montgomery and had recently been laid off from a road construction job, which would have given him time to plan and execute Jessica's abduction. The detective obtained a search warrant for Fletcher's residence and vehicle. The trailer was cluttered and dirty, filled with empty beer cans and fast food containers. In a bedroom drawer, investigators found a collection of photographs that Fletcher had apparently taken of young women without their knowledge, including several images of Jessica at various locations around Birmingham. Fletcher's truck contained rope identical to the fragments found at the burial site, along with a shovel and other tools that could have been used to prepare the location where Jessica's belongings were hidden. Hair and fiber evidence collected from the vehicle would later be matched to samples associated with Jessica, providing definitive proof of contact between victim and perpetrator. When confronted with the evidence during interrogation, Fletcher initially denied any involvement in Jessica's disappearance. He claimed the photographs were taken randomly and the rope in his truck was for work purposes. However, as Detective Chen presented the mounting evidence, including cell tower records placing his phone near the locations where Jessica was last seen, Fletcher's story began to fall apart. The breakthrough came when Chen revealed that investigators had found Fletcher's fingerprints on Jessica's car door handle. Faced with irrefutable physical evidence, Fletcher finally confessed to following Jessica for several weeks, learning her schedule and routines before contacting her through the prepaid phone. He had convinced her to meet him by claiming to have information about a scholarship opportunity at Auburn University. Fletcher led investigators to a remote location in Tallapoosa County, where he had buried Jessica's body in a shallow grave concealed by fallen logs and brush. The discovery brought closure to her family's unbearable uncertainty, while opening the legal process that would hold Fletcher accountable for his crimes. The trial of Raymond Fletcher began 8 months after Jessica's disappearance. Elena and Carlos Martinez attended every day of the proceedings, supported by extended family members and friends from their Birmingham community. Detective Chen testified about the investigation, walking the jury through the evidence that had led to Fletcher's capture and confession. Fletcher was convicted of murder in the first degree and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought some measure of justice for Jessica's death, though Elena Martinez would later say that no punishment could truly compensate for the loss of her daughter's bright future and loving presence. The case highlighted the vulnerability of young women traveling alone and the importance of family awareness about unusual communications or changes in routine. Jessica's story became part of safety education programs at Auburn University and other Alabama colleges, helping protect future students from similar predators. Detective Chen continued working missing person cases throughout her career, but Jessica Martinez remained the investigation that most profoundly affected her understanding of both human evil and the resilience of families facing unthinkable loss. She maintained contact with Elena and Carlos Martinez over the years, watching as they channeled their grief into advocacy work for other families of missing persons. The Birmingham Police Department established the Jessica Martinez Cold Case Fund, dedicated to providing resources for investigating unsolved disappearances and supporting families during their search for answers. Elena Martinez became a volunteer coordinator for the fund, using her experience to help other parents navigate the complex emotions and practical challenges of having a missing child. Years later, as Detective Chen prepared for retirement, she reflected on the lessons learned from Jessica's case. The investigation had demonstrated the critical importance of early evidence collection, the power of community involvement in missing person searches, and the need for persistent, methodical police work, even when leads seemed to disappear. Most importantly, it had shown her that every missing person represents not just a criminal case, but a family whose world has been shattered, and who deserves every effort to find truth and justice. The memory of Jessica Martinez continues to inspire law enforcement professionals across Alabama and beyond, reminding them that behind every case file and evidence box is a real person whose life mattered deeply to those who loved them. Her story serves as both a tragedy and a testament to the determination of those who refuse to let the disappeared be forgotten.